Hello everyone and welcome to Don't Be Bored. Today I'm back with another designer interview. Today I'm joined by Chris, the designer of Observatory. This is a roll and write game for 1 to 5 players that's currently on Kickstarter. And it's all about astronomers and constellations. So welcome Chris, please introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about the game.
Hello, thanks for having me on. My name is Chris Williams, and I am the designer of Observatory, which, as you mentioned, is a roll and write game about constellations. In the game, players will use dice as coordinates to plot stars onto their star maps and then connect them to form constellations, which are all based on real-world constellations. You'll also unlock upgrades and earn bonuses along the way. Observatory is a very fun, thematic, and easy-to-learn game for the whole family.
What an absolute wonderful theme. We have to start there. I come myself from an astrophysics background. That's what I did at university. So absolutely love it. And there is almost an educational element to parts of the cards, which is quite a nice little addition there. Can you talk a little bit about that and how it came about?
So Observatory started out as an entry into the Game Crafters Roll and Write Design Contest. When I was trying to come up with a roll and write idea, the first thing that came to my mind was using 2 dice as coordinates to plot a point onto a grid. This just sort of naturally gave a good visualization of stars, so it became about finding constellations. Anytime I design a game, I really like to dig deep into researching the theme as early as possible because it helps me to figure out how I want the mechanics of the game to work and helps to ensure the gameplay and the theme meld together really well. For example, when I started trying to figure out what upgrades I wanted players to unlock, I looked at the different pieces of a telescope and what their purposes were. So like how a telescope lens magnifies and focuses what you're looking at, the lens upgrade in Observatory helps you change the value of the dice to make them easier to get stars on the spaces you were hoping for. And as I was designing and researching everything, I found the 88 official constellations, which helped with the card designs. I had to take a few artistic liberties to make them work for the game, but overall everything is pretty close to its source. I also really love when games have little bits of flavor text, so I decided to add the facts at the bottom of every card. I really tried to mix them up, so some talk about the origin of the constellation, while others talk about how different cultures see it, and then others get much more scientific. Huge shout out to Carissa Zdenki from the Tellus Science Museum in Cantorsville, Georgia, who consulted to make sure everything was accurate.
I love the way you are instilling theme into different aspects and having that educational sort of information about the constellations. I think that adds a real extra to the experience. Now, the experience itself is driven by those dice for the roll and write feel, and one player is going to be able to use 1 dice, the rest of the players are going to be using some blue dice to chart coordinates and do research. Did the sort of number of dice and uses of those dice change much throughout the development of the game?
Yes, they definitely did. I think I started out with 4 standard dice, and players could combine those into any 2 pairs to figure out where they wanted to plot their stars. Ones also weren't wild at that point, so my grid was a bit larger. This all led to a lot of analysis paralysis, where players were basically trying to plan out their entire game on turn 1. I also didn't have the upgrades at this point, so once those were added and the grid was made smaller with the introduction of wild ones, I naturally moved to using just 3 dice so that 1 could be used as the research and the other 2 were for plotting a star. This made the game move much quicker without sacrificing any flexibility. I also wanted there to be a reason for an active player. In a lot of simultaneous games, it really doesn't matter who rolls the dice, but rolling dice is fun, so I wanted to ensure that all players had a chance to do so, and that it felt meaningful. So I added the shooting star die as a way to add more fun for the active player, who is the only one who can use the shooting star die. The shooting star die also allows you to plot a star with just a single die in one of the matching rows or columns, which can also give a nice visual of a shooting star flying across your star map.
Following on from that then, the fact that you can use dice to research and upgrade equipment and such, could you give us an example of maybe your favourite or a really useful one of those?
The upgrades were really fun to come up with. I really wanted to make sure they provided some different options for players based on how technical they wanted to get with the game, while ensuring none of them necessarily felt stronger than the other. This way, all levels of gamers could play the game the way they want. For example, if someone was a hardcore gamer who really enjoys manipulating the way a game plays, they could go for the lens, which allows them to change the dice, or they could also go for the filter, which grants them double bonuses when completing cards. And that can be extra powerful when combined with asterisms, which are smaller and don't grant as much points, but they do provide some nice bonuses. On the other hand, if a player tends to get overwhelmed with too many options, the Finder is great because it simply gives you some free stars that you can just plot wherever. Or they just throw their research into funding, which simply gives them a few extra points at the end of the game. I think my personal favorite is the Drive, which lets you write a number that you can then treat as a wild for the rest of the game, and wilds are always fun.
Wilds are indeed always a little bit of extra fun. Totally agree on that one. And you've been mentioning the fact that certain things did change through the game's development, I'm assuming as a result of playtesting. So do you actually have like a favourite memory from playtesting?
When I was first designing Observatory in 2020, I went to Protospiel, Minnesota, which is a game design convention where other designers get to meet up and playtest each other's games. I got to meet a lot of really great people and got some amazing feedback on the game. It was such an incredible experience, and there's no way Observatory, or even just myself as a designer, would have ended up here without the help from those other designers.
I feel this might be an obvious one then, but what tip would you give to a first-time game designer?
Engage with the game design community. There are a lot of really great people out there who want to see you succeed and can give great insight and feedback you never knew you were missing. And then as for an actual game design tip, the main thing that I always try to be very aware of when designing and playtesting is to focus on the player experience. Games are meant to be fun, so if a mechanic feels clunky or unfun, get rid of it and streamline your game.
An awesome tip, and one I think budding game designers should take note of. Now, where can people go to find out more about Observatory?
Observatory is being published by 25th Century Games and is available on Kickstarter now, so be sure to follow the campaign page to stay up to date.
Definitely go check out the Kickstarter campaign. I'll put the link in the description box downstairs. But before we end, a little fun one for you, Chris. What game would you say has the best box art?
Good question. I think my favorite is Scythe. The art for that game is just stunning and really pulls you into the world of it right away.
I am surprised no one has picked Scythe before. It really does have a really sort of almost iconic look in the board game space. And, well, thank you very much, Chris, for coming on and answering these questions today.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks to everyone watching as well, of course. I hope you've enjoyed. There are other interviews with other designers about their games on the channel, so definitely go check them out, as well as checking out the Observatory Kickstarter, of course. And until next time, have a constellation-filled good day.